What did the city of Warren, Ohio, the 308th Supply Train Unit of the U.S. Army's 83rd Division in World War I, and this little toy truck have in common? Why, that would be Toy King Louis Marx. The year was 1931. The country was in the depths of what we now know as the Great Depression. Louis Marx was actively establishing himself in the American toy industry, even though at that point in time he owned no factories, no means of production. He did have his toys, some very wonderful toys, produced by other companies, frequently bearing the Marx name and the Marx logos. Marx, ever the promoter, was doing everything he could to promote his fledgling line of products. When he came into contact with veterans from World War I, who were part of the 308th Supply Train Unit of the U.S. Army's 83rd Division. They were planning a reunion for the fall of that year in Warren, Ohio. The result is possibly the oldest promotional toy ever made by Louis Marx Company. We don't normally think of things this way today, but the United States in the pre-World War I period was not exactly a military world power. Granted, we did have the world's third largest navy behind those of Britain and Germany, but our land forces, the United States Army, were nothing like the powers of the world at that time. We weren't even in the top 15. We were more equivalent to some of the smaller European nations like Portugal or Serbia. We were also obsolete in terms of equipment. In 1911, the entire U.S. Army had only 12 mechanized trucks on their roster, 7 which were stationed in the Philippines. They relied rather on horse teams and wagons for transport, the same as they had done in colonial times with General Washington's army. This was despite calls from various officers over the years, as early as the late 1890s, to explore mechanization the way the European powers were. By 1912, Brigadier General Williams was tasked with drawing up specifications for a proposed Army truck. He did so, but his specifications were largely declared impossible by early American vehicle manufacturers. Many of them laughed him out of their offices. However, one Wisconsin company, FWD, had a motor car that could perform acceptably under harsh conditions, like Williams's specifications. FWD, the name of the company, stood for four-wheel drive. The Army began purchasing a variety of trucks from FWD and other companies for testing. In 1914, when World War I began, American manufacturers produced many trucks for militaries, largely from Europe, gearing up for the war. But the U.S. Army did nothing. In 1916, while pursuing Mexican outlaw Pancho Villa, Brigadier General Jack Pershing requested trucks to aid in the pursuit. At that point in time, the entire Army had less than 1,000 vehicles, and Pershing ended up with a hodgepodge of various manufacturers and models. It included 128 different makes and models, causing a logistical nightmare, both in terms of parts and mechanics and in terms of drivers. The need was so bad that General Pershing pressed civilians into service as mechanics and drivers for the trucks. Pancho Villa was never apprehended. On September 6, 1917, the United States declared war on Germany and entered World War I. Again, Pershing was tapped to lead. His original American Expeditionary Force traveled to Europe, but they brought with them only 33 trucks. Embarrassingly, they had to rely on French trucks for transport to the front. The U.S. government attempted to remedy this serious and embarrassing problem. The truck manufacturers already established in the U.S., most of whom were already supplying the armies of Europe with their equipment, designed a standardized truck for the U.S. Army, which came to be known as the Liberty Truck. The first Liberty Truck completed was built in the state of Ohio. The testing of the first Liberty Truck started in Ohio, and on August 3, 1917, under the provisions of General Orders No. 101, the War Department organized the 308th Supply Train as a unit of the 83rd Division, stationed in Ohio. Drafted men from the state of Ohio who had driving experience, mechanical experience, or both made up this 1917 unit. The unit was stationed and underwent training at Fort Sherman, Ohio, itself a rapidly constructed facility put together just outside of Chillicothe, Ohio, for the purpose of training troops in the buildup to World War I. They were stationed there until January of 1918. In January to May of 1918, the unit was engaged in conveying trucks from Detroit, Michigan to Baltimore, Maryland for shipment overseas. And on June 13, 1918, the 308th itself traveled to Boston, Massachusetts to travel to Europe aboard the British merchant vessel Carnarvonshire. They traveled to Liverpool, England. By July 2nd, they arrived in France and were stationed at Écumeuil, France, near Le Mans. They reunited with the 83rd Division, and for the balance of 1918, the 308th shuttled men and material to the front. On January 1, 1919, the truck companies of the 308th Supply Train were transferred to the jurisdiction of the commanding general of the American Embarkation Center and redesignated American Service Corps units. The remainder of the unit left France on January 12, 1919, aboard the USN George Washington, which was the same ship which later transported President Woodrow Wilson to Europe for the armistice, and they returned to Fort Sherman to be demobilized on February 1, 1919. Although it has changed designations many times over the years, the 308th unit actually still exists in the U.S. Army. Currently, it is known as the HHC 83rd Support Battalion. It is still a transport unit and a logistical unit, and it was stationed in Bamberg, Germany, until fairly recently. I'm going to pause for a moment to ask you for a small favor. If you enjoy what we're doing here at Kruger Street Stories, don't forget to make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Like the videos that you like and leave comments. All of these actions help us with the algorithms at YouTube so that more people will see our videos and will be promoted more, which helps the channel. And don't forget to click that notification bell so that you'll always be informed when we post a new video. For those who've already subscribed, thank you. Now back to today's episode. So what about our toy truck? This particular toy represents a Mack open cab truck, which was common in the teens and 20s, and it was used by the 308th Supply Train unit. A version of this truck appears in a 1930 Marx trade catalog. They produced several sizes and formats, and they were produced by the Girard Model Works of Girard, Pennsylvania for Louis Marx, who ended up buying Girard Model Works in 1934. This version's about 5 1/4 inches long and comes equipped with a friction drive motor. The canopy is printed with the lettering 308 MST, referencing the 308th Motor Supply Train unit. The Warren O. 1931 lettering references the September 5th to 7th, 1931 reunion of this unit. This is the first example of the truck to have surfaced publicly and might be the only remaining example of this interesting early Marx promotional toy. We at Kruger Street Stories would like to thank the United States Army Center of Military History and its Force Structure and Organizational History Division for providing rare photographs and historical information on the 308th Supply Train Unit of the 83rd Division of the United States Army. We also wish to thank the Warren-Trumbull County Public Library and its local History and Genealogy Center for locating Warren Tribune Chronicle newspaper articles covering the reunion. This episode would not have been possible without the contributions of both of these fantastic organizations. Louis Marx has long been known as a staunch supporter of the American military. Many of his children had godfathers who were former generals, and he counted many of these people as his close personal friends. He was a big supporter of Dwight David Eisenhower in both of his presidential runs. And his firm, Louis Marx Company, even employed former General Walter Beetle Smith as a member of their board of directors. And it may have all started way back in 1931, before he even owned a factory, with this little truck. Well, I hope you liked today's episode. We'll see you back here next time for another Kruger Street story. Well, that's it for today's episode of Kruger Street Stories. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, press our circular logo on this page to subscribe, and click on the thumbnail to watch this next episode we know you'll also enjoy.